You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 68 of 2025. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at the Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / the Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's number one sportsbook and fantasy site. If you like to support the Oddsbreakers and benefit from our premium plays, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a member. Pick any of our winning cappers and get our premium plays before the line moves. You can also support us on patreon.com. And if nothing else, please visit the Oddsbreakers and become a free picks and Telegram subscriber. What a crazy weekend of football, my friends. Not a ton of upsets. Some disgusting officiating that we had to endure more in the NFL, than even in college. Although there are some really things. There's some things that stuck out in college, but man, this has to be better. They have to do better because it is absolutely insane. From a betting perspective, I did well, up over 9 units in college, went 8-4-1. And the NFL, not so much. I went like 2 for 4, down about 6 units because of that massive swing with the Denver Broncos, my largest play of the weekend. And, that angers you when you see it. And then you are even more angry because you knew that they were going to throw a flag even before the play started. You knew that was in their mind. It was absolutely pathetic, that leverage call. It wasn't even the guy that went up in the air. The guy just put his hands on the center because that's what everyone does. The center stays low and the guy kind of comes up. That happens every single kick, but they decided to call it to change the outcome of the game. That was Craig Rolstad's crew. I don't know why they're so influenced by the crowd and the momentum, and it's just terrible to see, and it is wrong. And it needs to be changed because literally the players are not deciding the outcomes. And that is a massive problem when it comes to sports betting because us handicappers don't know what the hell we're going to do in these situations, right? Metrically, you have something that makes sense, doesn't pan out on the field because of stuff like that. But, I'll say that's almost all I'm going to say about that. We've been one of the leaders when it comes to trying to get fair games in football and basketball and all sports. And right now, I think football has taken a greater hit than it ever has in the whole history of the sport. And certainly very ugly to see. And I'm sure it's going to make our section the good, the bad, and the ugly. But back to college. I mean, like I said, not a ton of upsets. There's some kind of sketchy ones. I suppose, a lot of people thought South Florida was going to maybe beat Miami, but that was a sharp play for a lot of sharp bettors. I avoided it myself, but this is was a situation where you just had to find it pretty impossible that a team's going to win like that 3 weeks in a row. Florida LSU was kind of a sleeper, a snoozer of a game. Florida turned the ball over a ton. So, we took a terrible number in it, -9.5, and went all the way back down to 7. And, I thought it was going to go to 10 when I bet it, but fortunately we won that one. I thought I was a little fortunate in that via The Gators kind of should have been able to backdoor a field goal in there. They just didn't. So, hard to really gauge from that. The LSU, you think should have been better. Brian Kelly was grilled a little bit in the conference, but he wasn't taking a shit because he talked right back to the reporter saying we won the game, and that was fun to watch. Ohio State crushed Ohio. Well, I would say crushed, 28-point win. Yeah, I mean, they didn't cover the spread, but it was, a situation where Ohio State had no reason to try to put it on Ohio, even though Ohio State did score 14-0 in the fourth quarter. It was just, Ohio's a pretty solid team. They actually have a pretty solid defense. You have to remember that. They're probably, them and Toledo, once again, the best MAC teams, because Buffalo almost lost to Kent State. How pathetic was that? Oh my God. Buffalo, I think I completely missed the boat on that one, predicting the MAC, best teams in the MAC. It was me and a lot of people. Notre Dame messed up. Their playoff hopes are a little bit in shambles as they go 0-2 now. And now even if they beat USC, they still could be on the outside looking in because they don't really have anybody on their schedule that they can, claim to be a big win. So you have to wonder where their minds are. Arch Manning, that didn't look good against UTEP. Seriously, Arch Manning, that's the 10-3, or sorry, 14-3 after the first half against UTEP, 6-3 in the third quarter, 6-0 in the third quarter, I should say, and 7-7 in the fourth quarter was the score. Wow, was that pathetic? Illinois, I was wrong about you. I knew you were solid, but man, you have really climbed in my rankings. Brett Bielema looking sharp. The Western Michigan was a sharp play, and a lot of people thought they'd keep it close, but they couldn't even score. Illinois' defense is for real. Illinois' offense is solid. This is going to be a great game this weekend, probably the game of the week for me. Illinois at Indiana. I am very excited for that, baby. Vanderbilt coming through. Not only do they come through, they win outright. Lenora Sellers looks awful. Vanderbilt actually looks like they might have a defense now. They're just a strange team, though. I mean, I am a little worried about the Georgia State game, even though it's a revenge spot for them. But Georgia State probably thinks in their mind they can play with them. But the best two games was Tennessee versus Georgia, and Tennessee, should have won that game if they could hit a field goal at the end. That's the problem I have with college teams. You play for a field goal, you get what's coming. These are college kickers; they're not NFL kickers. The pressure is massively on. You get what's coming. And they shouldn't have done that. Heupel should have tried to punch it in, or at least get way closer. It drives me nuts when teams do that, get all soft at the end. It's like momentum shifts, you lose in overtime. And I feel like Tennessee should have won that game, but congrats to all the Tennessee bettors that covered that. I covered that as we had +7 that we gave out, but the under got absolutely demolished. But the other best game, Clemson versus Georgia Tech. We nailed Georgia Tech. We've been talking about Georgia Tech all summer. We said this is the spot they're going to win. Now Georgia Tech avoids Miami, Florida State, and SMU throughout the whole regular season. I mean, just give them the red carpet to the ACC championship game, right? I mean, a red carpet going into it. Now, we have Georgia Tech at double digits to 1. I think it's 14-1, 12-1 to win the ACC. So that's going to be fun. We're going to have to hedge that later, but no rush as of right now. Moving on to the NFL. Like I said, it was just such a head-scratching week. Started out with Green Bay being a really good team. And it's also led by a really good coach. I mean, Jordan Love's I'm probably wrong about him. He's probably a little bit above average right now in my books. Does enough to win. Doesn't make mistakes. Costly turnovers are avoided. I think, sure he's going to have a bad game or two, and it's just going to happen. But they really took care of the Commanders. And, yeah, the Commanders missed 2 field goals, but the Packers missed a field goal too. I was wrong about that one. The was really rough about the TikTok prop I had too. The very last play of the game for Green Bay, Josh Jacobs goes over the 77-yard rushing total with a 10-yard run. The NFL, obviously, Sunday, people coming in excited, crazy day. Dallas was my survivor play. I don't feel like I deserve to win that. Dallas is just such a cardiac team. They do things that make no sense. The Giants are a bad team. Russell Wilson comes in and looks like an all-star. Somehow the Cowboys tie it up with a 64-yard field. Absolutely insane. And then Wilson makes that one big interception at the end to give them enough time. I thought this was going to tie, which would have killed all survivors anyway. The tie kills your survivor. So I thought it was going to end in a tie, and somehow it didn't. Count your blessings. If you had the Cowboys in Survivor, maybe you should be a little bit more aggressive now. Take some of those teams that might aren't going to be popular. You already got through, and you should have been off. You should have lost. So don't lose. So don't feel bad if you're taking like a Seattle to beat the Saints and they lose, because you count your blessings. Might as well take another risk. Try to give yourself more leverage and save Buffalo for the weekend, the week after, or save, Baltimore. Well, they're playing the Lions anyway. You're probably not picking Baltimore, but you're going to be able to save some of those bigger teams. It's kind of the way I'm looking at it. It's like I should have been out anyway. Let's take someone like that. And then obviously we already talked about the Broncos Colts. Not a lot of big upsets. I know the Jaguars completely blew that 3.5 point spread we had, and it was part their choke and some. It was also Allen X ref and crew again, throwing a false pass interference on Hunter, and it just is what it is. But at the same time, if you're a team, don't put yourself in a position where you're going to have those judgment calls against you. Try to win. How about Trevor Lawrence not throwing the pick in the end zone or the pick later? Try to win those games, guys. Bears got absolutely dominated by the Lions. Lions have an offense. I don't think they have a defense again. I think that defense is bad, and it's going to be bad throughout the whole year. So those are my thoughts on that. A couple other teams don't have defenses too. It's not just them. And how about that? I didn't watch Sunday night because of how egregious the NFL was. Maybe I watched a little at the end, but J.J. McCarthy didn't look good at the end of the game. I looked at his stats. He didn't look good throughout the game. Atlanta did. And the problem with Atlanta is you got these teams with bad coaches and good quarterbacks. The Bengals were one of those teams, but Joe Burrow got hurt, out for 3 months. That means he's coming back for the last, 2 or 3 games of the NFL season. They're going to have to get surgery on his toe. What a massive hit. And that Bengals offensive line is terrible. It's always been terrible. And to hurt yourself against the Jags, man, that is rough. But the Jags still figure out a way to lose the game. Jake Browning is a solid backup, but he's still a 6-point downgrade from Burrow. Let's be honest. This is still a disgusting situation for them. And I feel like the Vikings are going to be a big survivor pick this week. But people are going to be a little scared because of what they saw from McCarthy, though. That's for sure. The Bills obviously playing the Miami Dolphins. That's going to be the biggest pick. I'm probably going to avoid it. But, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, Survivor is going to be interesting from here on out. I almost feel like if you saved Denver, you can use them later. If you saved the Baltimore Ravens, you can use them later. I think people have a pretty big advantage because everybody's winning now, and you kind of won creatively. You probably had the Cardinals against the Panthers, which got real dicey. I was at the game with my son, which was awesome. Had a great time. Cardinals tried to choke it up at the end, but that's just kind of how they are, and that's how I warned everything. So warn everybody, the back door was open, and it's always going to be open during Cardinals games. It's always because they play that soft-ass defense at the end. Just give everything away underneath. And great, and you don't give up the big play, but if there's 5 minutes left and the team's got timeouts, that could be 2 touchdowns just like it was. And the Panthers got the onside and almost won the game. That would have been a big change in Survivor, right? But, that's how it is. And it's time for our next segment. The good, the bad, and the ugly of the weekend. And there is, once again, plenty to go around. Green Bay Packers make the good. They're a better team than I thought. I had to upgrade them in the power ratings. Georgia Tech's field goal kicker. He didn't choke. He made the field goal. I got to give them props. They try to choke that game. Clemson's kind of like that explosive play or nothing team. But Clemson's in some trouble, too. Georgia-Tennessee game was amazing. That made the weekend, and that was fun to watch. And, wow, that was electric. And Georgia looks good. Tennessee still looks good, even though they screwed up. That's going to be fun to watch in the SEC, how these teams go forward. Delaware Blue Hens beating UConn. God, I almost bet them. I almost bet the Blue Hens. Mad I didn't. One of those that you're like, I had this circled. UConn in a letdown spot. Oh, and I don't bet it. That should make my bad. Utah State. I did bet them. A little bit weird with the whole political thing over there, but they still ended up taking care of Air Force. Like I said, option teams early in the year, they turn the ball over. What does Air Force do? They turn the ball over. How about Mike Elko beating Notre Dame, getting revenge? That was huge. Some things went his way. How about JKS, the quarterback for Cal? And someday I'll be able to pronounce his name. Today is not that day. But he goes and beats Minnesota as a dog. That was maybe one of the more key upsets that nobody's talking about. Russell freaking Wilson comes in and looks like an MVP, until the very end, and he makes that Russell Wilson type mistake. But I find Russell Wilson just to be like yin and yang constantly, and then he'll just look awful the next week. How do you trust Russell Wilson? They're 6-point dogs against the Chiefs this week. Man, my numbers don't say that. My numbers aren't that far off, and you can't use metrics just yet in the NFL. Lions are still scoring against the Bears. Bears defense is awful. Ryan Poles only had, 4 years to rebuild that? Survivors. It's good for the people that survived. But kind of like I said, if you still have those big teams left, more props to you. Brandon Aubrey from the Cowboys. The reason we're still alive. 64-yard field goal. And that thing looked like it'd be good from 75. It crushed it through there. You get the perfect kick in straight. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there watching Red Zone at the Cardinals game. But I tell you this, the Cowboys made that first quarter of the Cardinals game suck. I freaking hate you, Cowboys. The 46-yard field goal clearly to win the game instead of us tying was huge. Bad. Now for the bad. Matt Gay missed 2 field goals. What the hell? More kickers, more kicker issues. I mean, that would at least had us sniffing a cover with Washington. Chris Kleiman and Avery Johnson. Kleiman took a massive hit this year in my coaching rankings, and I am not overreacting. That team is all over the place, and Avery Johnson looks to have head problems. He's whipping the ball too high constantly, not accurate on his slant routes. It's just looking bad at Kansas State, one of the favorites to win the Big 12. Notre Dame's playoffs hopes. Oh, no! Not looking good. Broncos defense. That defense sucks. I don't know what we were thinking their defense was going to be awesome, but it's not working. They signed a bunch of guys, and they're just not playing together. They're not playing well. There's a ton of openings in that defense. I mean, Daniel Jones is looking like a freaking stud now. Daniel Jones. You're going to have to hear that Indiana Jones stuff all week. That should make my bad. Cowboys defense, too. Bears defense. Defenses look like shit. A lot of overs hit last week. J.J. McCarthy. Man, that was bad last night. Really bad last night. Bad. You couldn't hit water falling out of a boat yesterday. The tush push. There was like penalties on both sides, but I think it's usually called on the offense when they both go at the same time. It should have been on the offense, but they just didn't call it. I mean, you can see clear review. Also, the Eagles line up off sides a lot with the helmet over the football. They're not doing it right, and I'm starting to think that you need to get rid of it. And the problem is, if you get rid of it, you have to make a rule and go back to what it was when I was growing up watching football, that another player can't push a player as they're running, right? That rugby stuff kind of ends. And I guess I'd be okay with that. Why would you just allow the defender to be screwed because you have the running back, but the big offensive lineman comes and smashes you? It's a little weird, but I think that's the only way to outlaw the tush push. But the Eagles could still do it. You just can't have someone pushing Hurts, right? He has to just kind of do it himself. It's just the fact that the officials suck at it is why it should go away more than what's going on, right? So that's been kind of an ugly thing. Another ugly is, or to the ugly, I should say, Nico Iamaleava. He looks worse than UCLA's predecessor, Joey Aguilar, who went to Tennessee. Nico, I am not playing a football. And then they fire Deshaun Foster. It's his second season, dude. So can you believe it? They fired him. It's like, we got Nico, we got nobody else, and we fired Deshaun Foster. It's blame. He'll be the scapegoat. Stupid. Starch Manning. Not so much Arch Manning. A lot of Starch Manning in that laundry. Virginia Tech losing to Old Dominion.
You suck!
I mean, not just losing, getting their asses kicked. Darian Mensah losing to his old team, Tulane. It's so weird when the team transfers because he gets paid to another team that's a bigger team, and then the old team comes and beats him with their next guy. It's so good for Tulane and so ugly for Duke, man. Cowboys and Cardinals survivors. Ugly getting through. And it's kind of ugly for the people that want them out too, right? Oh my God. The Cardinals are just, so glad I can't use them again. Pass interference on Travis Hunter. That didn't exist. It was just a fallacy call to affect the game, and these refs need to be officiated more than the players do. Joe Burrow, toe injury. Definitely one of the ugliest things of the weekend if it wasn't for the refs changing the outcome of the Broncos game. That completely was obvious to anybody with a brain who watches NFL.
There are two kinds of people in the world, my friend. Those with a rope around their neck and the people who have the job of doing the cutting.
All right, now it's time for a little college football Week 3 misleading final scores. And not a ton of them. Liberty outgained Bowling Green 332-304, yet lost 23-13, a crazy 4-0 turnover ratio. Extinguished the Flames. App State outgained Southern Miss 379-279. 375-279, yet lost 38-22. A 3-1 turnover ratio. Poor red zone got the Mountaineers. Arkansas outgained Ole Miss 526-475, yet lost 41-35. A 1-0 turnover ratio. And poor red zone got the Hogs. Kentucky only outgained Eastern Michigan 482-461, yet won 48-23, a 1-0 turnover ratio and bad special teams in red zone got the Eagles. Florida outgained LSU 366-316, yet lost 20-10. A 5-1 turnover ratio smoked the Gators, and South Carolina outgained Vandy 328-323, yet lost 31-7. Terrible 4-1 turnover ratio. Sold this team out. College football week 4 betting spots, letdown spots. Georgia Tech could let down at Wake Forest after securing the huge Clemson win. Utah State could be lazy at McNeese State after the big Air Force win. Vanderbilt could be lazy hosting Georgia State after the big South Carolina win, although it's also a revenge spot. We'll mention that. North Texas could flatten out at Army after the Washington State blowout. Cal might let down hosting San Diego State after beating Minnesota, and Notre Dame could let down and out after the big loss at Texas A&M. So this is a different letdown spot. They lost, but they might be out of the playoffs, so we don't know where their heads are going to be at. Get up spots. Vanderbilt wants revenge against Georgia State after last year, so maybe that comes to fruition. Maybe they have these, teams circled, but, it's one that I'm just not 100% confident about. Clemson better get up versus Syracuse after that big loss. But Clemson might still be feeling the same thing with Notre Dame, but Clemson's still in it because they have a conference championship, possibly. They could win out and still make the conference championship game. So, it's different than Notre Dame. Tennessee will want to flush UAB down the toilet after the Georgia field goal miss and OT choke. Auburn will want revenge against Oklahoma for last year's debacle. Purdue will want revenge against Notre Dame for the blowout from 2024. And that's what I have for get-up spots. Look-ahead spots. Ole Miss could look past Tulane to LSU. That's the only one I have. They shouldn't look past Tulane, but Ole Miss does not look great. What's that number? 12.5, huh? It's going to be fun to watch that. Short rest. Tulsa, only 6 days rest at Oklahoma State. Long rest. Oklahoma State's coming off the bye, so they have a lot more rest. Wake Forest with extra 2 days at Duke. Indiana with an extra day rest hosting Illinois. Syracuse with an extra day rest at Clemson. Colorado with an extra day rest against Wyoming. Western Kentucky off the bye hosting Nevada. UCF off the bye hosting North Carolina. San Diego State at Cal after the bye. Oklahoma State after the bye, like I mentioned. Northern Illinois off the bye at Mississippi State. Louisville off the bye hosting Bowling Green. Louisiana Monroe off the bye at UTEP. Kansas off the bye hosting West Virginia. James Madison off the bye at Liberty. Florida State off the bye hosting Kent State. Colorado State off the bye hosting UTSA. Boise State off the bye at Air Force. BYU off the bye at East Carolina. And Army off the bye hosting North Texas. Going back to get-up spots, Kansas is probably also in a get-up spot because they should have beat Missouri. That brings us to NFL. Week 2, misleading final scores. The Dolphins outgained the Patriots 358-333, yet lost 33-27, a 1-0 turnover ratio. Very poor coaching got them. The Jaguars outgained the Bengals 400-350, yet lost 31-27. They won the turnover battle 3-2. But poor coaching and bad officiating got them. And just the fact that they're chokers. Panthers' yards were garbage time, so I'm not going to use their yards against the Cardinals. The Cardinals do that. The Colts were gifted the win, like we said, but they did outgain Broncos 473-324. So I guess if you had that Broncos ticket, maybe you can feel better about that. Feel better about a loss, imagine that, right? A 1-0 turnover ratio hurt the Ponies as well. When I say Ponies, I meant the Broncos. Nick should have never thrown that interception. The Chiefs outgained the Eagles 294-216, yet lost 20-17. That 1-0 turnover ratio and poor red zone killed the Chiefs because the red zone bounced off Kelsey on a perfect throw and went right into the Eagles' hands. That should have been a go-ahead touchdown there, but instead it wasn't. So that was rough for the Chiefs, who are now 0-2. NFL spots, week 3 betting spots, letdown spots. The Colts could be a little too happy at the Titans this week after the Broncos win. The Seahawks could be too confident hosting the Saints after the Steelers win. That's a scary one, right? Imagine the Seahawks dropping to the Saints. Betting on Sam Darnold. The Falcons, after Sunday night win, could be full of themselves at Carolina. So that's what I have so far. We also have 2 Monday night games we haven't gotten to, clearly. Get up spots. Broncos will wake up at the Chargers after that insane loss. Jaguars will need to get up at the Texans after the choke. The Chiefs will want to punch the Giants in the mouth after a rough start to the season. Look at spots. The Cowboys could look past the Bears to the Packers. But not likely, but they could. Short rest. The Chargers hosting the Broncos after Monday night. The Raiders at the Commanders after Monday night. The Buccaneers hosting the Jets after Monday night. And the Texans at the Jaguars after Monday night long rest. The Commanders hosting the Raiders after Thursday night. The Packers at the Browns after Thursday night football. Now it's time for our free play. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit about Arkansas. You know, Arkansas is in a bad spot here. They're playing Memphis. The number is 6 in some books. Is there enough 7s for me to say 7? That's the number I prefer. No, there isn't. I'm going to say 6.5. Although I see a 7, and I took 7. You take it again at 7 at Bet Online. So situation is Memphis is, looking at this as a great spot for them to play a SEC team, and this SEC team doesn't have a good defense. Memphis is a solid team. Are they a great team? No. Arkansas is getting a little too much love for what they did against Ole Miss. Ole Miss isn't that good of a team. You saw Ole Miss against Kentucky. You saw them choke in other situations. I mean, they're not a terrible team, but Ole Miss also has banged up quarterback, and Arkansas unfortunately has another big SEC matchup on deck. This was a one that people were circling. I feel like Arkansas left it all on the field after the tough loss, and now they have Notre Dame on deck. Is it as big of a deal? Yeah, they still want to beat Notre Dame, because Notre Dame lost those 2 games, but Notre Dame's in a weird spot themselves. But that's for a different week, because right now I believe Memphis is the side. Memphis has, no great wins. Chattanooga and Georgia State, double-digit wins, but they went to Troy and took care of business pretty well. I think they keep it close enough to the plus 6.5. I think this is probably a 3-point game, probably 3 to 6 point game here at home. You have to remember that Memphis was coming in pretty strong with some solid returning production and some very good players. Arkansas has one great player, it's their quarterback, Taylor Green, and without him playing well, they would not even be close to in these games. I do give Taylor Green props, and he got a lot of confidence beating Arkansas State and Alabama A&M. But a situation where I've had this circled all year. Memphis at home, there's going to be a ruckus crowd out there as well, and I just believe that plus 6.5 still has value. If you can find a 7, please do, but grab the plus 6.5 for 2 stars. All right, now it's time for a little fantasy football with our guy, D Nasty. Hey, folks, big opportunity here. The Oddsbreakers has partnered with the Optimus Prime crypto options trading platform and the Apex Alliance Club. How it works is that the Apex Alliance Club runs an AI-based algorithm that guarantees the trades that they give you. And that's how you get such a big income right away. And throughout the first 2 months, you can literally double your money. The greatest thing about this opportunity is it's completely safe. They give you $1,000 just to try it out. Once you make some profit, they take it back and you decide to make your first investment. Make sure you get some info on this by emailing us at info@theoddsbreakers.com. The Apex Alliance Club and the Optimus Prime crypto trading platform is a Coinbase and a Crypto.com friendly company. All right, time for a little fantasy football week 3. Dave, what's happening, my man?
Not much. Some great games this past weekend. Some games that came down to the wire. All those games are always fun to watch. Field goal winners, too. A couple of late field goals to win it. It's a couple of teams that probably shouldn't have won that one. But yeah, that's what makes football fun to watch.
Not really. If you're on the other side of it. Especially if you're a Bronco fan, it's like, teams won they shouldn't have won. That's great. What are we doing here? Yeah, no, there's definitely some shenanigans here, but the good news is that this is fantasy football, so it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with how the players actually performed, so maybe there's some integrity left in that. But here we are, and it's a crazy week, Dave, and there's some big injuries, very big injuries. If you start with the quarterback that was an MVP in Joe Burrow. Turf toe. I never thought a toe would take a guy out for 3 months, but this must be serious.
Yeah.
It must be really
This is crazy. They said
really
it's a
torn
grade
up.
3 sprain, but it's going to require surgery, which is why it's going to be 3 months. But yeah, definitely a huge blow to the Bengals.
How,
but we'll
how
talk
does a
about who's-
sprain even require surgery? Doesn't it have to be a tear? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either with the ligaments. They said something with the ligaments, but yeah, I agree with you. I would think it'd have to be a tear.
Herbert
but
to Johnson. Oh my God.
woo, it's wide open.
I have Herbert in your league, and I thought it was dead, but man, it's coming back.
There you go. Got some life.
All right. Because I'm playing another Troy who has Johnson, but I think I have a big enough margin for him. But that was a bomb, dude. These Chargers look for real. This Harbaugh knows how to coach.
He was a good coach when he was at the 49ers even too. He brought him to the Super Bowl. So yeah, Harbaugh's definitely a good coach.
Oh my God, he
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing out there, changing this team over and over, and it is just amazing to watch. I'm really wondering about this AFC West now. I feel like it's going to be the Chargers most likely, maybe Denver, but they're going to play next week, which is going to be great. But key injuries, Joe Burrow, man, like I said, that's really a bummer. And he's probably, I guess he can come back probably for the last 2 games or so, but practically.
They said mid-December. So he can be back for
3 games.
Tail end of that schedule. So the last 3-4 games.
Which is
maybe.
playoff time. And that's playoff time. So I guess, if someone drops him, stash him. That way you can play matchup football in the playoffs, and you can just keep them on an IR, especially if you have deep IR spots,
exactly
like our league does. Austin Eckler, another massive injury, starting running back for a pretty good Washington Commanders team, torn his Achilles, and he's out. Quarterback Jaden Daniels may miss this week and longer due to a sprained knee, which is weird news because there's 2 guys that came up, and it was him and quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who all of a sudden has a high ankle sprain that I really didn't notice.
He was limping a little bit at the end of the game, but he limped for a little bit, but then he played like it was fine. So yeah, that is really weird too. I agree. So
it's almost like he played so bad, maybe the coach wants him to sit. I don't know. It just feels very strange with a 2 to 4 week injury now.
Well, and that could be the reason he struggled too at the end of the game, though, too. So you never know.
Yeah, that's true. Out 2 to 4 weeks. Aaron Jones for the Vikings out at least next week with a hammy. So that's interesting. Jordan Mason will be big in the waivers. Running back Aaron Jones will miss next week with a hammy. I already mentioned that. Justin Fields, I'm sorry. He might have a concussion. So that's the only one I have, Dave. Any others to add?
Yeah, there's a couple other ones too. On Thursday night, there was another huge injury. Jaden Reed for the Packers is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks with a broken collarbone. So that's actually a huge injury as well. Definitely will hurt. And then the Eckler injury, I had that. And then the McCarthy, Aaron Jones. Yeah, those are most of the big ones actually. So maybe the quarterbacks are the main ones right now that you got to look out for.
All right. Well, why don't you start with the waivers then?
All right, great. I'll get into that. So some of the major ones, of course, for the injuries, you're going to be looking at the backup quarterbacks, actually. So Carson Wentz is going to be a huge pickup for the Vikings to fill in for J.J. McCarthy. You're going to have Jake Browning for the Bengals, who actually came in and did a really great job actually filling in there. Marcus Mariota for the Commanders. He actually has played well in the past when he's filled in, so that could be a nice streaming option for you this week. We'll get into some matchups, though, too, for that in a little bit here. And then a few other people that you want to take a look at. It's going to be Bicel Tootin for the Jaguars. He had a good week as the backup. Wan'Dale Robinson. Russell Wilson was slinging it this past weekend, dropping bombs all over the place on the Dallas Cowboys. Wan'Dale Robinson had a great game. Troy Franklin had a great game for the Broncos as well. Sun kind of was a bust this week, but I expect Sun to bounce back. But Troy Franklin, if he's on the waiver wires, which he should be, definitely look at him. Juwan Johnson, we talked about last week. I'm not going to talk about him too much. Jake Ferguson. A lot of people forgot about him. 9 receptions this past week. Dak was looking for him very often, so definitely add him if he's out there. And then Elick, I'm going to butcher this name here, Anamar for the Titans. He actually had a good week this past week. Wicks, he actually had 4 receptions this past week. And with the Reed injury, I think he's the guy who gets more looks, him and Dobbs. I talked about Dobbs a little bit last week. He was my D-Nasty sleeper. He got a touchdown. And Mac Jones, who had 3 touchdowns. So Mac Jones, if people still didn't add him, you definitely want to add him. 3 touchdowns this past week. And then Tyler Algier, he had a touchdown, and he had over 10 carries this past week on Sunday Night Football, and he looked pretty good too. Even with Bijan going off, he got quite a few carries as well. So that's another guy you want to take a look at.
Yep. No, that's great. I have a lot of those. I like Zach Ertz too. I mean, he's had 2 great weeks now, touchdowns in both of them. 8 targets, only owned in 57% of Yahoo leagues, Dave. So I like him. And Troy Franklin actually had 9 targets with the Broncos. You know, it's some of those weird, like high-scoring games that you see these guys come out of nowhere, kind of like Wan'Dale Robinson, right? 8 receptions,
Right,
100
exactly.
some yards and a touchdown. I think that's somewhat going to happen continuously if their defense is going to suck, though. So he's worth a stash. Like you said, Wentz, Mariota, Jake Browning. Definitely Jake Browning if you had Burrow. Is he get his Burrow? No, but at least he has guys like Jamar Chase. You know, that's huge. And guys like Jamar Chase is going to make him better. And same with T. Higgins and some of those good receivers out there on Cincinnati. So, I mean, it's not super exciting that Jake Browning is going to suck some games for sure, especially against some good Ds, but it's better than nothing. And then you look at the running backs. I was going to ask you, what do you think? Obviously, we know who the starter is for the Redskins. But what about Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez? Who do you think is the best number 3?
I think Chris Rodriguez, even though he was inactive for the first week, or the first 2 weeks, I think he actually is the better running back of those two. But McNichols actually is a good receiving back. I'd say Rodriguez is the better runner, but I'd say McNichols is the better receiving.
So that's almost more Eckler-ish. You know, it's like I'm struggling. I think it's maybe grab both if you can, if you're really struggling too. But I'd take a shot with McNichols first, I think. But yeah, deeper leagues.
Yeah, and like I said, Rodriguez was inactive the first 2 weeks, so definitely probably McNichols is who is probably higher on the list right now, actually, with the Commanders coach-wise and playing-wise. So, but I don't count out Rodriguez altogether, though, because he actually played pretty well last year when he got playing time.
What about Hunter Renfrow? Another situation where, you know, the defense lightens up, the refs throw flags, and here's Carolina down over 17 points back into the game, you know. I think they got an onside kick, though. My son and I left with like a couple minutes left because it was just, you know, we knew the Cardinals were probably going to win, so we beat traffic.
Bryce Young, a lot of people forgot about him too. He had a great end of the year last year, and then he didn't have a good week the first week, but this last week he had 3 touchdowns actually. So fantasy wise, even though the Panthers aren't that good and they didn't win, fantasy wise, Bryce Young had a really great week actually. So don't count him out. If he's out there too to fill in for some of these quarterbacks that are injured, definitely take a look at Bryce Young.
All right, well, I agree with that too. Let's move to sleepers and non-starting trending up for week 3. I'll start with the. I was going to say Raiders defense. They don't look so great against the Chargers here, but they are playing against Marcus Mariota. It's not the worst look in the world, so I'll throw them out there. Zach Charbonnet against the Saints isn't a bad idea either. You know what's funny, Dave? I wanted to ask you real quick, who do you think is the worst team in the league? Coming into the season, I was going to say the Saints, but I think I'm switching to the Titans.
It's pretty close, actually. I have to actually agree with the Titans, actually. I didn't know how Cam Ward was going to play. He looked good in the preseason, but he hasn't looked that good to start the season out. And then he has the receivers, but he hasn't really been throwing it really that much. He's going to the rookie now, and Ameyer. So, yeah, I definitely think the Titans are definitely the worst team in the league right now, but the Saints are pretty close as well.
Yeah, the Saints play tough at home. Now they got some really tough road games against, oh, my God, it's Seattle, then Buffalo. It's going to be brutal for them.
But I hate to say, too, about your team, the Bears, actually have not looked that good either. So,
well, we just played the Lions, the Vikings.
conversation.
At least we played the Lions. I mean, come on. And the Lions were in a home run spot after that Packer discussed. So, you know, it is what it is. Like I said, I still believe the Bears are a fade team in the beginning and team you want to be on late. I'm not changing from that. Marion Hampton now is a starter, Dave. You know, it's like, it's hard to say non-starter trending up, so I'm just going to announce him now for good. He's a starter. He plays Denver, and Denver's D looks bad. I don't know what happened there. But
I don't know. Hampton's actually struggling tonight right so far, and he's only got I think the last time I checked, he only had one carry for -3 yards. So I'd keep an eye on that. Denver's got a pretty tough.
Well, they got Najee Smith too. Najee Smith, but here's the thing: now that they're up,
Najee Harris.
Yeah, Najee Harris. Now that they're up by 9 points, you're going to see more running. So I think it's going to tighten up now.
I'd agree.
Or loosen up, I should say. Michael Pittman, wide receiver against the Titans, looks like a good ad. I think Michael Pittman could be great. And is he a starter? Yeah, maybe. But I suppose on the Colts. But in case you're not starting him, he's like your fourth guy. He's a good start this week. DJ Moore for the Bears. They're playing the Cowboys, and you saw how bad that Cowboys defense was against the Giants and against the Eagles.
God, the Cowboys defense is just horrendous. The Cowboys shouldn't even won this past week. I think the Giants should have won that game.
Agreed.
Another team that got beat that shouldn't have lost.
Yeah, and Romo Dunze is probably a borderline starter too, so I actually like him more than DJ Moore, but I'm just going to say, if you're not starting Romo Dunze, he's getting a lot of looks from Caleb. And even Caleb Williams could be a start against the Cowboys. He got 21 points last week, so it's not like he was a complete bum. Quarterback Carson Wentz against the Bengals, if you need a streamer, I like that. Marquise Brown against the Giants. I think he's going to have a big game because Rice is still out, and most likely Worthy is still out. Keep Marquise Brown, especially in your DFS. Wide receiver Darnell Mooney against the Panthers, Dave. That's a sneaky one that could be big. Darnell Mooney getting open in the slot there. Kyle Pitts as well. Kyle Pitts is doing better finally. It took him years, but now he's doing better with the Atlanta Falcons, and the Falcons look really good with Michael Penix there. I think Michael Penix is also a must start against the Panthers, and Dalton Schultz against the Jaguars is a bounce back. I think that, they had a tough game today, lost it at the end to Tampa, but I expect Dalton Schultz to score a little bit more. Who are your sleepers?
So I like the Bills receivers actually this week against the Dolphins. Dolphins defense is not that good. I like Kean Coleman and I like Khalil Shakir actually. Those guys haven't had a big week yet. Kean Coleman had one big good week so far, but I like both those guys against the Dolphins this week. I think that they put up some points. Like you said, I like the Falcons D actually this week. The defense actually looked really good against Minnesota. I know JJ was struggling, but the Atlanta defense has definitely improved this year. I like them that they're a nice streaming defense this week. Like you said, I think Penix and Darnell Mooney, I like both of them, and Pitts. All of those guys against the Panthers. Panthers don't have a good defense. Packers this week play the Browns. I didn't hear you mention any Packers, Kiev. I
see. Here's the problem: the Browns have a good defense, especially rushing. But I think that there's a couple receivers that I think would do good. That's it.
Yeah, so I'm saying Wicks and Dobbs, kind of like I was talking about before. I think those guys have to step up now with Reed out. I like those guys this week. I like Dobbs last week as well, but I like him even more now that with Reed out. I think him and Wicks pick up some of that slack there. Definitely like that. I think C.J. Stroud has a good day against the Jaguars. Jaguars have been putting up a lot of points, but their teams against them have been putting up a lot of points as well. I like Stroud, and I like Schultz. I like the Schultz pick as well. I like both of them. I think Stroud has a good week next week against them. I do like the matchup for the Vikings next week. I think Carson Wentz could actually have a good day, though. The Bengals defense is just horrible. They're kind of like the Cowboys. They're letting teams score 20, 30 points against them every week. So it's going to be a shootout, I think. I think Wentz has a good day. Jalen Naylor actually has been looking pretty good, filling in for Addison. So he's a sleeper there. And Matt Mason, too. Now he's going to get full set of carries, actually, and get all the carries now against the Bengals. I really like him. So I like a lot of the Vikings this week against that poor defense.
I forgot to mention that Mason is, a lot of people have Mason handcuffed, Dave, but the truth is that who's the third guy? Is it still Ty Chandler? Or was he still hurt? Ty Chandler still, yeah. Is he hurt or no? Because he was hurt for a while. Yeah, he's on IR. Xavier Scott is the third guy there now, according to ESPN. Woof, right?
So, yeah.
I think Jordan Mason, if he's on waivers, you have to pick him up.
Huge waiver pickup, yeah. That's definitely the running back you want this week is Tuden and Mason. Because, Tuden is the backup now for Etienne. But Etienne had another great week, though, too. But Tuden's been getting a lot more carries, and he had a touchdown, too. So, yeah, Mason's definitely the running back to pick up this week for sure. We should have definitely mentioned that. But, yeah, Definitely the pickup of the week right there. I like the Colts this week again. Colts 2-0 Colts. Indiana Jones, Danny Dimes. Is playing really well. I look for that to continue. I like Pittman, like you said, as well. Josh Downs actually had a pretty good game, too. So I like both those receivers against the Titans this week. Everyone's already starting Taylor, but definitely those sleepers trending up are definitely the two receivers in Pittman and Downs. Definitely like them. And Daniel Jones, I think he could play well, too, against that Titans D. They're just not looking good that right now. I like the Seahawks this week, too. I think Darnold can have a good day this week. And then Cooper Kupp actually had a nice week this past week. He's starting to come around, too. So I like them against that Saints. A D. I hate to say it, Kia, but I like the Cowboys this week against the Bears. Kevontae Turpin's actually under the radar kind of receiver. He's been getting a couple touchdowns here. He's getting a touchdown here each week, and he's getting some looks too, some targets out of the backfield and some carries too. So he could be a guy who's trending up. And Pickens, I know he's probably a little under 50% over in most leagues, but Pickens is actually got to watch against the Bears too. I think he could have a big game against them. And then I like the Chiefs against the Giants. They're coming off a 0-2 start playing the Giants. They're going to be ready to roll here against the Giants. So definitely, I think Isaiah Pacheco finally gets on track this week, and Kareem Hunt could have a good day too against the Giants. Even though they have a good rushing deal, I don't think they're. I'm sorry. Even though they have a good pass rush, their rushing D is not that good. So I think the Chiefs actually could run on them, have a big week. I like Hollywood Brown too on that, like you said, against them as well.
Yep. Agree with all that. Let's move to Bus, Dave. Who is going to destroy your week?
Well, that's a really tough matchup with the Lions and Ravens. So I don't really like either one of those teams. Both teams have a pretty good D, especially the Ravens. I don't like the Lions matchup against the Ravens. I know I kind of downgraded Goff last week against the Bears, which was not the right thing to do. But I definitely don't like the Lions this week against the Ravens. I think the Ravens was as complete team as it can be out there, other than the Packers probably.
I didn't downgrade Goff. Who downgraded Goff? I didn't.
I did.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah.
I mean, the Bears were missing Bears are missing Kyler Gordon and a couple others. And
Julian Johnson was too. Yeah,
Johnson got injured right after the first quarter, so that didn't help either.
So yeah, injuries it can always change that course of. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I don't think the Giants score as many points this week against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs D plays better and they step up. So I don't like Russell Wilson this week against them. He had a great week last week, but I don't think that continues this week against that tough D. I don't like the Chargers this week against the Broncos. I think the Broncos have a really good D, even though they're playing at Los Angeles. I don't still like the Chargers. I don't like Justin Herbert against them. I think Quinn Johnson, I'd downgrade him a little bit too. I don't like Marion Hampton against the Denver Broncos D. I think their D is good. So I'm downgrading them. And then the other ones I'm downgrading too are going to be the Cleveland Browns, the Packers defense with the Micah effect. Joe Flacco would definitely not starting him. Even if you're not starting him this week against the Packers. And then I don't like the running backs either. Even the another pickup too, Quashawn Jenkins, we forgot to mention him. He actually got quite a few carries. Actually, he had like a lead back role. So if he's still out there on waivers, definitely look at him. But definitely don't start him this week. But definitely pick him up. And then the Patriots this week, Drake May. I think he could struggle against the Steelers as well. All
right, no, good stuff. I have a lot of those. Brandon Jacobs against Cleveland's D, Dave. Cleveland's got a good run D. They always do. I think that, it would be love throwing the ball against them. You just got to really get away from Myles Garrett, and then you can just destroy this team. And you saw Lamar do that. Wide receiver A.J. Brown against the Rams is kind of suspect. The only thing worried about Cleveland, I guess, is that they did pretty good against Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's been looking pretty bad.
Cincinnati's defense is not good.
And they got reffed into that game. You know that. Kyler Murray against the 49ers is dangerous too. I think that you could have a good game for Murray, or you can have just a stinker with Murray. So I'm more leaning towards a stinker this week. Running back Travis Etienne against the Texans isn't too fun when the Texans are 0-2. Can't try to get a third loss. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, he also against the Texans, is a little suspect. I think that Jags should win this game, but I don't know, man. It's a little worrisome. And Brian Robinson, too. Anyone on Cleveland against Green Bay. I'm not playing anybody on Cleveland. I know you mentioned Judkins now. This ain't the week to do it. Sorry.
I said a good pickup, but I didn't say to play him this week. So I said, I said you can pick him up. He's a good pickup, but don't play him this week.
And I'm not even sure if I would start Russell Wilson. What a crazy game that was. And then now he's playing a pissed off Chiefs that's 0-2.
No,
that's
not a good matchup.
That's not a good matchup either.
Agreed.
Okay, yeah, he remembers them from when he played for Denver too. Cam Scadaboo against the Chiefs also is a little bit dangerous. Otherwise, I just feel like there's a lot of bad defenses out there. Even the Ravens can give up some points. It's just, I don't have as many busts as I used to. I think as the year moves on, we'll have more. But it's time for the Nasty Sleeper, Dave. Who's going to win it for your fantasy football league this week?
I'm going with who's hot right now. Danny Dimes. Indiana Jones is to the rescue against the Titans. I love it, man. I've been talking up the Colts actually the last couple of weeks, and I think they do it again. I think they beat the Titans pretty handily, and I think Daniel Jones has a great day.
You took mine. This is Daniel Jones too. You did. You did. But you know what? So what? We both agree. Let's do it. I'll keep it there. And because, this Titans D is really bad. And you saw Stafford just do what he wants against them. I think this Colts team is kind of playing with some momentum. They shouldn't have won last game, but even though they shouldn't have won, they still outgained the Broncos, putting up like 470 yards. And look at Jonathan Taylor right now being like the number one.
John Taylor looked great.
Oh, he looked amazing, man. And, if they keep him involved and are blocking well for them, I mean, they could just absolutely eat up this Titans team. And I agree. I think the Titans are the worst team in the league. And I think Daniel Jones is being salvaged pretty well and making the Giants look pretty bad in that situation. So you and I agree, my friend. Good stuff. Anything we missed?
Love it. No, I don't think so. Make sure you cover those injuries. Make sure you get those pickups in for all those injured quarterbacks. Go Pack, go, and have a great week.
Yeah, my man. Great stuff. Make sure you guys check out this article that's going to be coming out tomorrow with it all listed out and some of the ones that Dave gave out as well. I always write down. We'll be back with some college football Wednesday live on YouTube at 1 p.m. And then obviously that comes out on Thursday in podcast form. Same with NFL. Thursday coming out Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week and go get some winners.